Did y'all know the Orlando Magic are the second seed in the Eastern Conference right now? I was pretty surprised when I looked at the NBA standings and I saw we were 20 games into the season and Orlando is still one of the better teams in the league. I know a lot of people are surprised that Orlando's doing this well. They have a lot of questions and they're kind of just wondering, how the hell did we get here? Orlando hasn't exactly had the most success in the past couple years, which is why last season they were able to draft Paolo Banchero at the #1 pick, and so far I'd say it's worked out pretty well. But something that I find very interesting is that Orlando has gotten fast at a rate that we did not expect. Funny enough, I made a video about a year ago where I predicted that the Orlando Magic were going to be one of the better teams in the league in the future. But by future, I was thinking like, 2 to 3 years, maybe even 3 to 5. I did not think that within the next year, they were going to be the second seed in the Eastern Conference. And not only are they the second seed right now, but it seems like they're probably going to stay there for a while. I know there are some people that want to say Orlando's fraudulent and that if they get to the playoffs, if they barely do, that they're going to just be beaten in the first round. But Orlando, this team is pretty special. Not only are they a top 6 team in net rating as a whole, not only do they have a #3 defense right now as far as defensive rating goes, but they've beaten some pretty good teams. For example, they beat the Denver Nuggets, they beat the Boston Celtics, arguably the 2 best teams in the league. They also beat up on the Lakers. On top of that, they also beat Milwaukee, the team I thought was going to make the finals to come out the Eastern Conference. So yeah, it's not like Orlando is just beating up on bad teams. They're beating the good teams. They're coming for everybody. So what the hell is the difference from last year where they won 34 games to this year where they're already at 14? Now, there are a couple things to break down. I think the easiest thing to start with is their defense. The Orlando Magic have arguably the best defense in the NBA. And the thing is, I don't think we should be that surprised that this is going on. Okay, maybe #3 is kind of crazy, and hell, even the best defense might be crazy, but let's not forget something. Last year, they were number 14 in the NBA in defensive rating. But something else that I thought was pretty interesting is I found out that the Orlando Magic became the #9 defensive rating team in the NBA when Markelle Fultz came back. As you guys know, Markelle Fultz dealt with injuries last year, but when he came back, he made a pretty good impact. Like also, do y'all remember that Jonathan Isaac came back this year, and you could argue he's their best defender. And overall, this team has a bunch of dogs on the defensive side. They got Mo Wagner, Paolo Banchero's been pretty good on the defensive side. I talked about Markelle and Jonathan Isaac. Oh, and I damn near forgot about Wendell Carter. Like, this team, they have a bunch of defensive weapons, and it's showing that they are going to continue to be one of the best defensive teams in the NBA. I honestly think that's why they're doing so well. Now listen, having the best defense in the NBA, that is a very important thing, but you need more, and the Magic, they have just that. When I was doing research for this video, something that I found very interesting is that the Orlando Magic have 6 players averaging over double figures per game. And all that taught me is that Orlando is a pretty balanced team, and they have loads of weapons that I feel like a lot of people are not talking about. Jalen Suggs has always been considered a bust, and he was someone I was very high on when he came into the league, and unfortunately, he didn't really have the best start. However, this season, Jalen Suggs is dominating. He's doing his thing, his shooting has improved. Overall, I like the way he's been. I mean, Cole Anthony, Markelle Fultz, they're both doing pretty well when it comes to scoring this year. Even Mo Wagner, like they have a bunch of guys that are coming off the bench or that are starting that are able to score the ball a lot. Like usually with some of the best teams in the league, you have that one guy that's averaging like 25 to 30 points per game. And Paolo Banchero, don't get me wrong, 19.5 points per game, that's not too bad. But I like the fact that they have a lot of guys that are able to score, like Cole Anthony averaging 15. No one's really talking about that. And I don't know why, because just a quick little side note, I've always liked Cole Anthony as a player. I've always thought he's been the perfect player for the Magic. But yet not a whole lot of people are going to talk about most of these guys. I know Paulo's going to get all the credit and he's probably going to be on the thumbnail. But Paulo's not the only reason why this team is doing well. I just need y'all to understand the fucking depth this team has. It is amazing. I got to give a shout out to the Orlando Magic, man. They have drafted so amazing in these past couple years. Now I know I've talked about Paolo Banchero, but the truth is they don't really have a #1 option. Like yeah, Paulo's probably the more popular player, but Franz Wagner, this man is also having one hell of a season. In fact, I'd argue Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner are one of the best 1-2 punches in the NBA. And if we're talking about young 1-2 punches in the NBA, oh yeah, they definitely have that title. These guys were drafted in the same draft within the same lottery. And I'm not gonna lie, Orlando's return on investment has been amazing to see. I'd say one of the main reasons why their offense has done so well is because they have balance, which I feel like is a key word I'm gonna bring up a lot in this video because, for example, Paolo and Franz Wagner, that's balance, but also having 6 guys guys in double figures, that's balance. I know defenses are preparing for Paulo, but they're also having to prepare for Franz. Hell, they might also have to prepare for Cole Anthony. But something that hasn't been talked about enough and I feel like is not getting the credit it deserves is the Joe Ingles acquisition. Getting Joe Ingles this year was a very important move that needed to be made. I talked about it in my Magic video about a year ago, but they didn't really have any veterans on the team, and getting Joe Ingles was the perfect veteran. If we're talking about just the locker room, he makes the team a lot more mature, they makes it a lot more team oriented, and that's why, you know, stuff like ball movement and passing, I think that's why they're able to do just that. Because you gotta remember, this is a very young team. It's not like they're older, they're still a young team. Let's not forget that. But bringing a guy like Joe Ingles was the perfect man for the job. I think I even said like a year ago, if they got like a veteran point guard like a Chris Paul or Kyle Lowry, that this team would be set. And I know that was kind of not going to happen, but it was just something I was suggesting, and I was kind of right in a way. And the fact that it took Joe Ingles to be the veteran experience they needed, and now he's one of the reasons why they're able to make this leap, it's kind of weird to see, but I'm loving it, man. Now, as fun as this is to see it and talk about it and watch this, I feel like there's something we need to ask. Is this sustainable? Can the Magic actually be a good team for the entire year? So can Orlando sustain this? Well, let's look at the standings for a sec. If we look in the Western Conference right now, there are 5 teams that I think have a legitimate chance to make it to the NBA Finals to represent the West. That is the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Denver Nuggets, the Phoenix Suns, and the Sacramento Kings. I know they all happen to be the top 5 seeds in the Western Conference, but these are the teams I'm pretty confident in. But on the side of the Eastern Conference, things get kind of weird. Of course, you got Boston and Milwaukee, and of course, you have the Philadelphia 76ers, but after that, I think Orlando is the only team that I see joining that group. So yeah, I think Orlando is one of the 4 teams that can make it to represent the East. But the funny thing is, I do see problems within a lot of those teams, like the Celtics, for example. I think their depth is a very big issue. Milwaukee, they're kind of struggling, you know what I'm saying, to balance both Dame and Giannis at the same time. And Philadelphia, I mean, Joel Embiid is a consistent playoff checker. So do I trust Philly in the playoffs? No, I don't. Actually, should I even have Philly in that top 4 reign? Maybe not. So it's needless to say that the Eastern Conference is very much wide open right now. There's not one set team that I think is going to make it. I think any of the teams that I listed have a real possibility at making it. And especially with Orlando having the best defense in basketball, or if you're trying to be conservative, one of the best defenses in basketball, it's needless to say this team has an opportunity to do something very scary this year. And if you guys remember at the beginning of the season, I had a rule of thumb. I said I didn't want to judge a team within the first 5 to 10 games. I said around game 20, I think is when teams actually start to show themselves. And the Orlando Magic are showing themselves to be a team that can contend in the playoffs and that are finally starting to mature. I am so excited to see how Orlando does for the rest of the year. I'm interested to see if Paolo Banchero gets voted as an all-star. And most importantly, I just like being right because like I said, I predicted this shit a year ago. I knew this team was going to be good. I knew the young core that they had was going to dominate. Granted, I thought it would take a little bit more time than this. The unfortunate reality is that I don't know if the media is going to talk about them. I don't know if a whole lot of people are going to actually consider them to be contenders when it's time to have that conversation. But do you think the Magic really care if you're picking them to make it out the East? Probably not, because the Orlando Magic is a team that gives me the vibe that they let their game do the talking, and they've done just that so far. And somebody else that has let his game do the talking in not such a good way is Jordan Poole, because Jordan Poole deserves the failure he's had this year. If you guys want to see why, click the video on the screen right here.